All right, so this is the function in class practice. Your homework is going to be a review for your formative, which is tomorrow. But this is just in case you missed the in-class practice and you want a really quick reminder of how to do things. All right, this first problem here says Rebecca's hosting a birthday party for her 8-year-old son. Between buying supplies and the food for each guest, she determines that the overall cost can be modeled by the function C of G equals 130 plus 12G, where G represents the number of guests. In the equation, where do the 130 and the 12 likely come from based on the context of the problem? Go ahead and pause your video and try this one out yourself. Okay, so I want to know what the 130 represents. So the 130 is going to be my initial amount. So since she's having a party, I'm assuming that the initial amount is going to be how much money she's spending on, plates, cookies, cake. So her supplies, basically, because she's going to pay that even if 0 people show up. If 0 guests, 0G shows up, she still has spent $130. So I'm going to guess that $130 is the cost of her supplies. So 130, as I'm going to say, is the cost of her supplies. What is the 12? So this is 12 per G, 12 per guest. So that's an additional $12 to feed one person. So $12 cost per person. So that could be just their food. That could be like if she bought everyone a party hat, whatever. All right, to determine the value of C of 12 and explain its meaning. All right, so C of 12, I'm plugging in 12 for X, or 12 for G, my bad. 130 plus 12 times 12. C of 12 is, so if you need a calculator for this, it's not a problem. You have 144 plus 130, which is 274. Okay, it also says explain its meaning. So 12 is the number of guests, and 274 is the total cost. So I'm going to say if 12 people, or 12 guests, either one, attend the party, it will cost $274. Okay. Is this function discrete or continuous? Circle the correct option below. So what this means is that if I were to graph this, would it be points or would I connect the points? Okay, so I gave you options to help you out here. Is it continuous because the cost keeps going up as more people are invited? Is it continuous because any number of people could attend? Is it discrete because a whole number of people will attend, so only whole number inputs make sense? Or is it discrete because only a certain number of people will attend? All right, so let's go through this. Let's think about this. If I were to graph the cost right here, so this is the number of guests, 1 guest, 2 guests, 3 guests, 4 guests. I'll just do up to 4 people. And then this is how much it cost, right? So let's say 0 guests was this much, and then I got this and this and this. The question is do I connect them? So is there a value right here? I shouldn't make it look because they're not labeled, but let's go like that. Here we go. Is there a value right here? So like I can go over X up that much to figure out what that value is. Now remember, this is people, okay? People is a whole number. I can't say like, oh, the cost of 1 and 1.6 people. That doesn't make sense. So first off, I know it's discrete. It's not continuous. I'm not connecting these. Now, these two statements are true. Cost does keep going up in the number of people, and any number of people could attend, but that's not why a graph would be continuous. If you look at this reason, discrete because a whole number of people will attend. That's what we just talked about. If you look at the last one, because only a certain number of people will attend, that's not necessarily making anything discrete. All right, next one. If Rebecca wants to keep the party under $400, What is the limit of the amount of people that she could invite? So 400 is my output, right? So I'm going to say 400 is my cost, is C of G. And then my equation was 130 plus 12G. So now I need to solve for G. All right, first step to solving for G, subtract 130 from both sides. All right, so that's 270 equals 12G. And now to get G by itself, I'm going to divide by 12. Okay, so I got G equals 22.5. So it says, what is the limit of the number of people she could invite? Is my answer 22.5 people? Absolutely not. It makes no sense. Can she invite 23 people? Nope, because she'll go over $400. So she could only invite 22 people. All right, next one. Based on your answers to parts C and D, write a reasonable domain and range for the problem. Okay, domain, range. All right, so domain is the number of guests. So she could have 0 guests, she could have 1 guest, she could have 2 guests. The most that she's going to have, remember, is 22 guests. Okay, now I could list every single number in between those two, but I don't really feel like it. All right, my range. She could spend $130 is the lowest amount she's going to spend. And then 12 more is $142. And then 12 more is $154. ... And then I need to know how much it costs to have 22 guests, which I didn't figure out yet. So I'm going to do C of 22, which is 130 plus 12 times 22. I can use a calculator to get that, but that cost is $394. So just under 400. So make sure you're not putting 400. It would only be $394 for 22 guests. All right, last one in this section. Explain the meaning of C of 8 equals 230 in the context of the problem. Okay, so go ahead and pause your video and try this one. You should add if she invites 8 people or 8 guests, it will cost, ooh, that's a weird I. It will cost $230. Okay, and if just something similar to that, mentioning that it's the fact that there's 8 guests coming, that's going to make it cost $230. All right, the next one here, it says Lucas has a summer job at a pool maintenance company. He pumps water from a swimming pool that needs repair. The graph shows the relationship between the pumping time in hours, H, and the water that remains in the pool, W of H. Okay, so H is hours, that's the x-axis. W of H is the water that's left in the pool in gallons, which is this would be similar to Y. So A says, determine the value of W of 4. So is this an X value or is this a Y value right here? That's an X value, right? So I want to know when X is 4, what is Y? So W of 4 is, so let's look here. Here's 4. Right there. 600. Explain the meaning in the context of the problem. Okay, so 4 is the amount of hours that have passed. 600 is the gallons that are left in the pool. So I'm going to say after 4 hours, there are 600 gallons of water left in the pool. Left in or still in. Okay, B. For what value of H does W of H equal 0? Explain the meaning in the context of the problem. So remember, W of H is just a fancy way of saying Y. When Y is 0, what is H? H is just a fancy way of saying X. So when Y is 0, what is X? So here is where Y is 0, right? So when y is 0, let's go over here. That's what x is. X is 8. So I'm going to say h is 8, which is number of hours. Explain the meaning in the context of the problem. So that 8 hours, the gallons is 0. So I'm not going to say after 8 hours, there are 0 gallons of water in the pool. I can say after 8 hours, the pool will be empty. After 8 hours, the pool will be empty. Or you can say it will take 8 hours to empty the pool. All right, next one. I think this is a little bit easier because the graph's right in front of your face. Is the function discrete or continuous? So looking at it, I can see that it's a continuous function. It goes from one point to another and all points in between, so I can just even get rid of discrete. I'm not going to even read the ridiculous reasons why, because eventually the pool will be empty. I read it. It's ridiculous. All right, continuous. Is it continuous because the water keeps draining? It doesn't go up and down. Does that have anything to do with it? Like, is this a continuous function? That's a continuous function, so that can't be the answer. Continuous because the water is draining at all moments and not in sudden jumps. There we go. It's always draining. That's why there's all those points connected. Write a reasonable domain and range. So, domain, range. Okay, domain is all possible x values. So I'm going to look at the lowest my x values go, the highest my x values go. And it's all values in between, so I'm using interval notation. So I'm going to say in between 0 and 8. So remember that's 0, 8. And 0 is a possibility and 8 is a possibility. For my range, all possible y values, the lowest y value to the highest y value. Always lowest to highest. So 0 to 1200. And 0 is a possibility, and so is 1200. So brackets on both. Write an equation for W of H. So W of H equals. Okay, so I need my initial amount. So I look and I see that it starts off at 1200. So I have 1200. Okay, so now I can look to see if it's increasing or decreasing. It is definitely decreasing, and now I want to know how much it's decreasing every hour. So I look at the hour. Let me get all this other stuff off here. There we go. I look at 1 hour to see how much it has dropped. And I look that it was at 1200 and now it's here, which is like a halfway mark it looks like. So it looks like 1050, but I'm not positive. So what I could do is check to see how much it is at 2, which is this is at 900. So after 2, I went from 1200 to 900 after 2 hours. So that means, yes, 150. So after 1200 to 900 is 300. It dropped by, and that's after 2 hours. So after 1 hour, it's going to be 150. Okay, so it's going to drop 150 gallons per hour. And there's my equation. All right, so let's try another one here and then do a little domain and range from a graph, and then you'll be able to start working on your review. Susie's no-interest credit card has $2,000 charged to it. No-interest credit cards are amazing. Each month she pays off $100. What are the variables in the story? So we need X and we need Y. All right, so what's happening here? She's got a credit card. She's paying it off $100 per month. So that's what's changing is the amount of months. So this is going to be the months, number of months or months paid, however you want to say it. Number of months paid. Okay, Y is going to be the amount she owes. Because as the months go on and on, $100 comes off of that $2,000 that she has charged to it. As X increases, Y. So as the months go on, right, and she's paying it off, what's happening to the amount she owes? It's decreasing. All right, let's make a table. X, Y. Okay, so after 0 months, after 1, 2, 3 months. So after 0 months, she owes $2,000. And after 1 month, she'll only owe $1,900, then $1,800, then $1,700. Does this story represent a discrete or continuous relation? So am I connecting the points? So after, half of a month, is she only going to owe $1,950? Is that a question? No, because that's not how payments work. She's making the $100 payment. Oh, I forgot to write an equation too. Y equals her initial amount, which is $2,000, and she's paying it off $100 per month. Okay. So once again, this is not continuous because there's no points in between the 0 and 1 that we'll be using. There's no points between the 1 and 2 that we'll be using. So this is discrete. And now we have to say why it's discrete. Okay, so this is usually the hardest part for someone to explain. So I would say it's because she's making the payment once per month and she's not continuously making payments, right? So she's making one payment a month. She is making one payment per month, not continuously making payments. So that's a good way of thinking about it if you know it's discrete, mentioning that you're not continuously doing that action. Write a point which is in the relation to describe what it means. So I'm going to use the point 0, 2000. I'm going to say, what was her name again? Susie. Susie started by owing $2,000. If I picked 1, 1900, I can say after 1 month, Susie only owed to $1,900. All right, now I need my domain. So we already said it's discrete, not continuous. It's discrete, not continuous. So I'm going to use a bracket with a list of numbers. Okay, so most common mistake people do. Actually, it's not in the domain. But let's figure this out. So I go 0, 1, 2. Now I need to know where I'm stopping, okay? Because obviously I'm going to keep going, but do I keep going forever? No, because she doesn't have to make $100 payments for the rest of her life. When is she going to be done? Okay, so I want to know when her balance is 0. I want to know when Y is 0. So I have 2,000 minus 100x. Subtract 2,000 from both sides. Negative 2,000 is equal to negative 100x. Divide by negative 100. Divide by negative 100. 0, 0, negatives cancel. So 20. X equals 20. That means that she will have it paid off in 20 months. So I know I have to go up to 20 and then end that with a curly bracket. All right, my range, here's where people make mistakes. They started at 2,000 and then they go or 1,900 and keep going, blah, blah, blah. It's lowest to highest. So I'm going to do that she'll owe $0, $100, $200, ... and at the most she'll owe $2,000. See that? Okay, last but not least, determine whether each relation is a function. State why. Tell whether it's discrete or continuous. And write the domain and range. Okay, so I'm going to start with each one I'm going to go through. Determine whether each relation is a function. So is A function? Yes, it is. Is B a function? No, it is not. All right, now, so I just did that. So determine whether the relation is a function. That's this. Okay. Next it says state why. So now we're going to, I'll use pink for that, state why. Okay, so if you look here, this graph passes the vertical line test. I can draw a vertical line anywhere and I'll only hit it once. So I'm going to say passes VLT. Or I could say every input has exactly one output. Here, doesn't pass the vertical line test. Or I can say the input of -3 has two different outputs. Doesn't pass VLT, is easier to write for me. Now, if this was a list of numbers, you can't say doesn't, if there's no graph, you can't talk about the vertical line test. The vertical line test only works as if there's a physical graph in front of your face. Okay, so that's my reason why. All right, next I have whether it's discrete or continuous. So if you look at this graph A, it goes from a point to a point and all points in between. So that's continuous. If I spelled it wrong, there we go. If you look at B, those are points, right? Those are just points and they're not connected. So this is discrete. Last, state the domain and range. All right, so I need domain, range. Domain, range. Okay, so A is continuous. So remember, I just write two numbers. I write the first number, the lowest number, the highest number, and then use brackets or parentheses. So I'm going to start with my domain, which is my x values. So it goes from here to here and everything in between. So I'm going to say that's from -5 to 6, and then it includes -5, it includes 6. My range, the lowest my y values go to the highest my y values go. So that's from -5 to 5, including both. Okay, people will say like, okay, I see a point here, but what about a point here? There's a point there, it's just that I didn't make it like this, right? Okay. That was domain and range for that one. All right, this one is a list of x values. It's not continuous, so I'm going to list every x value, smallest to biggest, every y value, smallest to biggest, in curly brackets. All right, so my smallest x value is -4. Then I have -3. Then I have -1, 3, 5. Notice there's two x values of -3. We don't write it more than once. We do not write repeated numbers. All right, my range, my lowest y value, curly bracket, -5. Then I have -4. No, I don't. -5, -3, -2, -1, and 4. If you need to go like this to go through it to count them correctly, do it, right? It's your paper. Okay, so that's my domain and range, and that is it for the practice together. So you can go ahead and now get started.